Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. We talk comics, movies, TV, and pop culture every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, right here on youtube.com/Rogue Matter, facebook.com/We Are Rogue Matter, twitch.tv/We Are Rogue Matter, and twitter.com/Rogue_Matter. We then take this fantastic video podcast and turn it into the greatest audio podcast as well, available on all major podcasting apps, including Apple, iHeart, Spotify, Google, you name it. We are out there. I am your host, Michael Dolce, as always, joined by my cohort in crime, the Lord of the Radio himself, Mr. Hassan Godwin. How you doing, sir?
Yay, great to be alive.
It's our last show before our summer break. We're gonna do a 1 week summer break, so that this way we can enjoy the last of the summer and. And I know you'll be at the beach because you're a beach dude, right?
Yes, I will be I'll be catching some tasty waves.
I actually said that I meant it to be sarcastic, but I don't think I actually annotated it sarcastically enough to imply that. Like I was almost genuine.
No, that's your fault. That's not my fault.
Yeah,
that's your fault.
No, I agree. So we've got a little bit of a shorter show tonight. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But lots to talk about. We are going to dive into the She-Hulk series. The first episode debuted last week. It's every Thursday, so we get at least a week buffer in between. So we'll dive into that a little bit. We're going to talk Lord of the Rings and House of Dragons because House of Dragons debuted. But we've also got our own version of epic fantasy, which is Kingdom of Tundo, and we'll get into that in a minute. But first, I got to tell you how last week I was a superhero. It was at the Red Hot Chili Peppers concert. So after the show, we recorded our show last week, made it down to Red Hot Chili Peppers, which, by the way, the Strokes opened for them just randomly. I always feel like the Strokes could open
randomly open for them, or you mean?
Well, I mean, this
is a random anecdote.
Yeah. No, just randomly. How the heck did the Strokes actually? I feel like the Strokes would sell out the place, but they managed to be the opening act. So I got two great acts that I've been dying to see. No one that I know likes the Strokes though, so I can never go to see the Strokes unless I go by myself, which is possible. So I got 2 in 1. But here's how I was a superhero. First of all, Chili Peppers, amazing, absolutely amazing. Those guys are pushing 60 years old. You would not know that at all. Very, very youthful on stage, very into the music, so highly recommended. I know you haven't had the greatest experiences all the time with the sound quality, depending on where you've been. But I was at MetLife. Awesome. So totally an amazing show. We get out though. Show ends, typically around 10:45, 11 o'clock, we get to our car. The parking lot is it's not moving, not moving at all. I told my wife, just turn the car off. We're in line waiting to get out. And after 10, 15 minutes, I started walking around. I looked in, I'm like, this isn't moving. We have no way to get out. So I start walking around because what else am I going to do? Right. So I just start walking around the parking lot and I notice behind us, an entire section is gone. And I'm thinking to myself, there's no way they got past, all these cars. We're basically blocking. How did these people get out? And so I negotiated with 10 different cars to turn their cars around. I got yelled at by one guy who then got yelled at by another guy because the guy's like, get back in your car. Why don't you just get back in your car? And the other guy's like, no, dude, this guy's trying to help us. And I led a barrage of 10, 15 cars to an exit that for some reason no one was going to. And we managed to get out of the parking lot.
Did you punch the guy who yelled at you?
What's that?
Did you punch the guy who yelled at you?
I hope somebody did. I hope the guy that was in the car with him punched him because then he's like, dude, we got out. Literally. And so we're actually all funneling to the exit and I saw one of the guys and the other guy's like, thanks, man. This is much better. We're getting out. I'm like, yeah, I don't know why. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but whatever the case was, I was not going to sit back and sleep in that parking lot until 2 o'clock in the morning. I was determined.
Everyone was suffering from herd mentality. It was like, well, everyone's pointing in this direction. This must be the way to go.
Right.
Don't ask questions. Just go this way.
Just go.
Yeah.
I asked questions. So that is my superhero moment of the week. That was my harrowing experience. I've told that story enough times. My wife wants to hit me with a sack of pennies now. I was obnoxious about it. I'm not
Sack
gonna
of
lie,
penny.
honey. I mean, I was purposely obnoxious about like this is all me. See this? See this? How we're getting home right now?
Yeah, you don't have to tell me that you were obnoxious about it.
I
I
know.
can extrapolate an
I know.
image for myself.
I was not
Going
being
on
humble at
past,
all.
going on
I
past
was,
experience. Right. Okay. Well,
I
good
was
for you.
genuinely
Well
proud of
done.
myself, though. So that's the life lesson,
I'm sure.
kiddies. Don't take no for an answer. Don't take let's just go one way. Find a better way. That's life lesson for the day. All right.
And
Let's
punch out the
dive
guys who
in.
yell at you.
Right. Let's dive
Always-
into our.
Always punch people out.
I refrained from I didn't have to. Somebody else yelled at him for me.
I know
like-
you should have done that. That would have made you. A badass hero as opposed to a superhero. You want to be a badass hero.
No. I would have if I'd cut his tires. That would have been.
Oh well, either way. I mean, that's kind of like punching him. That's punching him in the wallet.
That's actually worse because my
Yeah.
punch is very weak. I hit like a girl. I mean, I'm not very strong. I mean,
I
there's
know
no
some
question
girls
about
that hit pretty hard, man. So that's
that. Right, tidy fists of fury.
Yeah. Okay. Well, either way, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. I actually appreciate that you appreciate what I did for at least 10 or 15 cars. I feel very good about it. It was a mass exit. It was a beautiful sight. I'm not gonna lie. It was actually.
Did you film it?
I felt very. What's that?
Did you film it?
No,
Nothing's
I
real
should've.
unless you film it. You should have put it on
True.
TikTok. You messed
true.
up. You messed
That's
up.
true. All right. We do this every week. We go into what is coming out on Rogue Matter. We call this Rogue Matter Presents, and it's perfect timing, to be honest with you. We have Kingdom of Tundo #5, which is out today. It is epic fantasy Filipino style. It's actually a little bit of an interlude, this particular issue. The only difference that I could tell you is, all the stuff is free on our site. So, sometimes you get an interlude and you're like, oh man, I want to get right back into the action. But no, look, you're going to get it all for free. So there's no reason to be down on an interlude. Are you an interlude fan or no? Like if you're reading a story, do you like a little interlude every now and again?
It depends. It depends on how well it's done. If there's some bad interludes, and there's like this wasn't necessary at all. So I'm a fan of any story element that works, any story gimmick or element that works.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. The good part also about this coming out as it is that we just got episode 1 of House of Dragons over the weekend, which is great. We're not going to go deep into it, but we're gonna because we're waiting because then Friday. We are getting Lord of the Rings from Amazon as well, too.
Supposedly.
Yeah, 2 episodes. And so we're off next week. So by the time we come back September 7th, we are going to have we'll have at least 3 episodes of both series, to kind of stack up against each other. And we will do a little House of Dragons versus Lord of the Rings in a few weeks. So I'm excited about that. But we'll do a little preview as well because we don't know what Lord of the Rings is coming out. We don't have the full details on House of the Dragon just yet. But with potentially billions at stake, the Rings of Power and HBO's Game of Thrones prequel are about to face off. And Hollywood Reporter actually thinks they've got a clear winner as to who is going to win, quote unquote. Which show and which platform will win, or at least win the most. Heading into the respective premieres. One suspects that Dragon has an inside track because Game of Thrones has a built-in fan base from TV. And Amazon Prime Video has yet to demonstrate it can pull off a TV-sized Lord of the Rings, and it will have to draw non-subscriber Tolkien fans to its service. Dragon has double the current audience interest of Rings of Power, though the marketing blitz hasn't really begun and Dragon's at full steam. On the other hand, Amazon's $500 million investment in Rings of Power is unprecedented and extraordinary. And while money can't buy you quality, it sure doesn't hurt. Also, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movie trailer was a global blockbuster. So there's a lot of things, that could steer it in either direction, right? If you were going to define first define, what would you consider to be a hit between these two shows?
Which one are you asking? I don't understand the question.
Well, no, I'm saying,
would
what
I
would you
consider the
define
hit?
as success?
I don't know. It's like, superior ratings. I don't know. That
Right.
like
Because they have the streaming charts now too, right? So I mean, HBO is a
Mhm.
little difficult because they have the combination charts. You know,
But
they'll
they're
have
still on Nielsen's. You have to wait a couple of weeks though. That's a problem. It doesn't come out like week 2, and then they'll announce it, of course. If it breaks, if it breaks all kinds of records, they'll be the first to say something about it. So I mean, that's the first sign. If you don't hear anything from the actual company itself that it broke records and 20 million people watched it or whatever,
Yeah.
then you're for a fact that that it had a lukewarm reception. But I guess high ratings I would consider that a success. It's in trouble. It's not in trouble, but I mean it's got trouble because it is following up a phenomenal run from Game of Thrones, regardless of the last 2 seasons and how they were regarded. People were so mad about those last 2 seasons because the show was so great once upon a time, right? So it inspired a lot of ire. So I honestly think both shows have a large degree of jeopardy going into their opening seasons. One has to live up to a poorly received season finale of the previous show, and then also be the same quality of the previous show, because it's just going to get compared. There's no hope.
Yeah.
And the other one has to live up to the 6 movies, the 6 Peter Jackson movies that were, as you say, world renowned. So I mean, I think they both have a good degree of peril.
Now, I think the early negative buzz, and this is not from critics, but this was just from fans in general, was does this deviate? I don't know the books, so I don't know the books of either, right? Because if it doesn't have pictures in it, I'm not reading it. But Lord of the Rings, though, did they gender swap, or do they just focus on somebody different? Is that what the idea is, that the Lord of the Rings sequel, that they didn't, it's not quite authentic, or am I off base with that?
No, I think one of the problems is it seems to focus on Galadriel.
Okay.
As she's a warrior elf, which she is in the Silmarillion, and what I mean, it's not inaccurate.
Okay.
But those voices, you get those voices. So, so there's worry that it's going to be modernized to the point where she's going to be wisecracking and one-liners and stuff like that. We don't know yet.
Got it.
And then, of course, there are the ethnicities. Like there are.
I saw that. I mean,
there are black elves,
though, right?
and
It's a book, though. Do they describe the color of skin of the elves in the books?
No, but it's implied that it's all from Anglo-Saxon. It's a reimagining of Anglo-Saxon history. So there would probably be no black elves. But I mean,
I did read about that, but like I said, unless there's some sort of actual explicit direction in the book, I'm fine with it. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't bother me in any way, shape, or form to do that. I do know from all the marketing material, like you said, it's focusing on that one warrior elf, and so that was, I think, a little bit of a brouhaha online, I guess, in terms of.
Anytime there's a woman lead of anything, there's some kind of fuss,
Yeah.
So but I mean, we will see how she portrays the character. She's following Kate Blanchett.
Sure.
She's playing Kate Blanchett's character from the movies.
Got it.
So she's got to follow that caliber of acting. So we'll see if she lives up to that. That's the only if and or but I would apply to it. It's like, can she live up to Kate Blanchett? I don't really mind if they have her, swinging a sword and killing people.
Is Kate Blanchett is she just the best actress of our generation? Is she like the Meryl Streep of our generation?
Well, I mean, Meryl Streep's still alive and still acting. So, like, I guess Meryl Streep is still the Meryl Streep of our generation, but Kate Blanchett is high caliber. She's way up there.
I meant like of our because she's in our she's in our
You mean
generation.
Generation X?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's unfair. I would not call that unfair.
She can slip into any role, I feel like, and just absolutely crush it.
Yeah, she's on what's his name? Is Caliber.
Yeah.
Lincoln. Who played Lincoln? What was that guy's name?
Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis.
Daniel Day-Lewis. Yeah, she's on his caliber.
Daniel Day-Lewis is the male equivalent of Meryl Streep, I feel like, right? Because he's gotten older now, right?
Yeah, he's gotten older.
How old is Daniel Day-Lewis? Good question.
Although I think Daniel Day-Lewis competes with Gary Oldman in his ability to.
Yeah. Let's see. How old is Meryl Streep? Actually, I'm very curious now. She's 73. Yeah. See, I think that's more of a good comparison. Kate Blanchett's 50. Wow, she's 53. She looks amazing. Holy cow.
Yeah, people in their 50s are.
it ain't what it used to be, right?
No, they're still young people.
I think we said this on a previous show, but I think it's worth repeating. When I first introduced Goonies to my kids, my cousin and I were looking at each other and we're like, Ma Fratelli was 56 years old when she filmed that movie. She did not look what today's 56 is.
No, I mean, Ewan McGregor is almost the age of Alec Guinness when Alec Guinness played Obi-Wan. Look at Alec Guinness versus Ewan McGregor.
No,
Alec Guinness was like 60, I think, in 1977.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor, 10 years difference. Yeah, he's 51 now.
So you think in 10 years he's going to look like Alec Guinness?
Alec Guinness, Ewan McGregor age. That's actually Guinness was 63, 12-year difference. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, he did. He well, he was in the sun a lot. He got burnt. That was the problem. That's how you can explain.
Oh boy.
I think you can explain the, how Alec Guinness. It just didn't hold up in that Tatooine desert. A lot of sand, and a lot of It's not.
It's funny how the intellectual part of the discourse just kind of drops out, and then you just start winging it with weird assertions of sun and what I mean.
I'm saying, yeah. How do you explain Ewan McGregor? 10-year difference is not, should not produce what Alec Guinness looked like in the first movie. Right.
Yeah. I'm not even talking about the continuity of the show. I'm just talking about what 50 years old or 52, 55 years old looks like in 2022, as opposed to 1977.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy.
Although back in the 70s, people leaned into their age, they weren't pathologically trying to hide how old they were. So
very true.
Very different.
I still get that I'm 31, so I'm good with that. Like, I'm a big fan of that. And Aaron's fan, and just like that's leading ladies are the same age as the characters in the Golden Girls. Ooh, that's a good comp. They definitely look a lot different than the Golden Girls did.
Yeah.
All right. Real quick, House of Dragon, definitely, again, we'll go into more detail about it in 2 weeks when we come back from our little mini vacation. I think it's going to, personally, if I have to declare a winner, I'm going to say that's going to be the ratings winner over Lord of the Rings. I think just because Amazon's a tough, I know Amazon has sports now too, right? They have football and they have baseball games and stuff like that. And I got to be honest, I think just from a general confusion of some folks not knowing where to find stuff, Wheel of Time came out and I don't know. I feel like Amazon doesn't get the kind of hype that other, streaming networks. I feel like Apple TV is like that also. I also feel like Apple TV is kind of like that lost, kind of lost in the streaming wars shuffle kind of thing. I feel like the top two are Disney and HBO Max and Netflix. Those three are the general public knowledge of where to go to get, particular content is those 3 platforms. That's just my own, feeling on the masses. I feel like Amazon's kind of like a distant fourth where I think educated streamers know to go there, but the general public is like, oh, I heard this new Lord of the Rings. Where do I watch it? And wouldn't think Amazon,
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. Aaron said, I'm Netflix, Hulu. I can't afford Apple, Disney, HBO, or Paramount. See, it's true. The streaming dollar, that's a big issue. You've talked about that too. I mean, the fact that these different streaming platforms now, are I mean, there's so many of them now, and it's now just as expensive to get all of them as it is to get, as to what it was, prior to cutting the cord too.
I think Amazon is unique because it's a hub where you can actually stream other services through Amazon. Yeah. So that's probably why they have they'll have a lasting stake in all of this, as opposed to mono dedication of service like Netflix, and we already know we're losing HBO Max, so in about a year's time. So I don't know, Amazon's game's gonna come up, I bet.
Hey, The Terminalist, actually, Chris Pratt. I mean, that's the #1 streaming show. That's Amazon.
Yep. And that got like billions. The Boys is on Amazon.
And The Boys entered that into that thing. So we will declare an official winner in 2 weeks. We'll give some time. We'll go both from content and also from some ratings. But it's a fun time. I mean, it's a fun time for Epic Fantasy and Rogue Matter. Not only do we have Kingdom of Tundo, we've got a new book called The Watchers that's going to be coming out in October as well too, that we just acquired as part of our library. So Epic Fantasy, man, it lives here. It lives here. Go check out Kingdom of Tundo. It's available right now on roguematter.com. When we come back, let's dive into that first episode of She-Hulk and get our Rogue reaction when we come back. Welcome back to the Rogue Wave podcast, the frequency for all things pop culture and the disruptors behind it. Again, just a reminder, we are going to go on vacation next week, which is fantastic. I can't wait. It's be very excited. What are you going to do on your vacation, Hassan? Are you going to watch more TV?
No, I'm going to get work done.
Nothing like a workcation. I'm actually going to do that too. I'm going to bring my laptop to the beach with me in the hopes that in the morning I get like an hour or 2 of writing done a day. And maybe organize my computer.
You're going to be on vacation with your 2 kids and your wife, and you're going to try to get 2 hours of writing.
Yes. So this is what happens, though, right? So
I do not buy it.
So we're at a beach house, but the beach house has a pool, and so every morning, or not every morning, but a lot of those mornings, like my wife will just go to the beach with the kids, and I'm like, I don't like the beach. Like I don't dislike the beach, but if I have my druthers, I'm like, nah, I'm good. Like, so there's like an hour in the morning where they'll just kind of go off, and I'll be alone in the house. And
you'll be sleeping.
Nah, dude. Once the kids are up, that's it, man. Like, there's no going back. There's just, I'll take a nap later in the day sometime by the pool probably, but yeah, no. So
all right,
sand in the laptop. We don't want sand in the laptop.
Yeah. We'll see that. Then. We'll see what your progress level is at.
Yeah, I'll give you a full vacation report.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Excellent.
Full vacation report. All right. She-Hulk debuted last week. Came out on Thursday. It was another entry into the MCU universe, but as opposed to Ms. Marvel, which ended on a high note ratings wise, She-Hulk is a little bit more of a prominent character than Ms. Marvel, because Ms. Marvel is really a recent character, and by recent I think she's like 13 years old, something to that extent, whereas She-Hulk has now been around I think since the 70s.
Yep.
You
read it when I was a kid, so yeah.
Yeah. I got to tell you, I put this one up, in the Loki stratosphere for a couple reasons. One, it's got star power. I mean, the Hulk, the Hulk himself, Mark Ruffalo, has now been in so many of the movies. So he has a draw. He's a draw for me. First off, right off the bat. Tatiana Maslany, she's also a name recognition actor. She's very, very talented, and she is super dynamic in this. So I feel like she is the female equivalent of Tom Hiddleston, to where I'm like, wow, I'm just sold because I just enjoy seeing her on screen, much to the same way I enjoy watching Tom Hiddleston on screen, where he just kills it. Like every scene she's in, every scene he's in, just kills it. The third thing that I like about this right now, why I put this up very high in my rankings of MCU shows, though, so far, just from that initial pilot, my initial excitement level. You know how I gauge it by how excited am I to watch the next episode. Dude, we grew up with The Incredible Hulk as a series, as a TV series. There was watching this episode, I know this is a different Hulk. Smart Hulk is not Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. But there's a familiarity about like watching the Hulk in a TV series where I'm kind of like, yeah, you got me. Like you got me just on that, on that alone. So super impressed with the first episode. The director had kind of said that it was going to be almost like a half-hour comedy kind of thing for him. I wouldn't go that far. I think it was very funny. I think it was a very lighthearted, episode and show. But I wouldn't compare She-Hulk to, Malcolm in the Middle or Seinfeld or Friends or something like that, where it's a sitcom or half-hour comedy. But overall, very pleasantly surprised. I'll go into my one gripe in a second, but what was your immediate reactions?
No, I want to hear your gripe because I don't want you interrupting me with your gripe when I
got it. Not that it wasn't pulled off effectively, but I feel like these Marvel shows are actually like you almost could have had an entire season on her just becoming She-Hulk. Instead, you just got her as She-Hulk like right in the first episode, and how she became She-Hulk was just very, very like it was. They kind of did a little meta version of it in a way where Bruce Banner's like, "Oh, great! You don't need 10 years of figuring out how to deal with yourself. You just are. That's great." And it's like, I feel like a lot of these Marvel shows so far, with the exception of I think Loki, it's all about just get right into the action part of it. There's something about comic book movie adaptation or comic books that are adapted into TV shows and movies that sometimes when it's treated like a comic book just doesn't pull off the same way. Like I could see this being a comic book where, you don't have to go into the big origin story. You don't have to really build this up, over time. But TV's, I feel like the format of TV just works a little different and gives you room to breathe where you don't have to rush into stuff. And they don't take advantage of that. I don't think they don't take advantage of a good build sometimes. It's a minor gripe though. Overall, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised with episode 1 so far.
Okay. I think no matter what they do, someone's going to have some kind of issue with it, because I can also see if they decided to spend the next 6 episodes or whatever on how long it takes for them to establish that she's She-Hulk and that she can, people will be like, "Oh, just get on with it already." Like we know the comics, like just get on with it. Like just get something going. So I think if they were going to make it expedient and just get kind of to the point, I think they did it intricately enough where it didn't feel so jarring that, I'm okay. Everything, I'm great. I'm the She-Hulk and I'm great. I also, the strange thing about it is I had heard I had a Sandman moment or incident with She-Hulk, because I had heard some bad things before watching it. You
Yeah.
know, some of the people I watch, they had screenings or screeners.
Yeah.
And they were like, I don't know how people are gonna, so I'm like, all right. And I went into it all, kind of, cautiously optimistic. And I really enjoyed it. So then I come back to see, because a lot of times when I see people who have, have an opinion about a show, even if they promise not to have any spoilers, I still won't really engage. I won't watch them because
Sure.
so people can't help it sometimes, or sometimes
Right.
they'll try to talk their way around something, and you can just figure out what they mean by them talking around it. So it's just, I don't find it always safe to watch people before you've digested material on your own. So when I see something, I go back to see what they had to say about it, and then
I agree with you. I agree. I like seeing what other people initially thought and see if it lined up with what I thought. I agree.
Yeah, but I mean, all the criticism disappeared, and suddenly it's like, it's a hit for another hit for the MCU. It's a hit for Disney Plus. I'm like, where did that all come from? Everyone was talking it before, like 6 hours ago. There were like 3 different sites that were down talking it. So, I'm kind of happy. It's very light in controversy.
Yeah.
And that it's just it's just a show that we're all gonna just watch and give it a day in court. No pun intended.
Yeah.
I'm happy it was kind of light on the comedy, but there was comedy in there.
Yeah.
It wasn't, because I don't know, man. I am not in touch with current audiences anymore, because suddenly the dinosaurs weren't dinosaur enough in Jurassic Park, and the jokes that made Ragnarok prominent were too jokey in Love and Thunder. So I'm like, all right, I don't understand. It seems like when the audience, and I don't mean this in any kind of a subversive way, when the audience is not willing to like something, they just they'll dislike something for the same reasons they liked something else, right? So it's there's kind of no rhyme or reason to it. To whether or not something is going to agree with the people or not.
I think that's interesting, though, because I think there's also like that famous, case, with the judge saying, like, can you define what pornography is? And it's like, well, I know it when I see it. And I, like in the case of Thor, for example, just using one of those examples, for some reason, Ragnarok, it worked for me, and in Love and Thunder, it didn't. And so I think sometimes it's also just the people trying to understand, like, well, why didn't it work this time? Or what is it about this that for some reason turned me off? And I mean, you and I can articulate, I think, reasons for why it does or doesn't work a little better than maybe some other folks. But at the same time, there's just something that's off about it. I mean, I think that's an acceptable way to look at it as well.
I'm not looking at it any other way. I'm just saying, I don't know. There's no rhyme or reason to it. Just like what you just took like 5 minutes to say. But anyway,
I know it when I see it.
There's no rhyme or reason to it. But you don't know what you're gonna know until you see it, right?
Yeah.
So like I said, there's no rhyme or reason to it. And so like I see things that seem to be perfectly acceptable a year ago, and they're not for some reason now, right? Yeah. So, and then I will watch them and I'll be like, all right. And then I'll be like, there's nothing wrong with this. It's not great. There's nothing wrong with it. So you never know. So, I mean, I'm kind of happy to see She-Hulk and enjoy it, and see other people enjoyed it. And that's kind of, that was the extent of my assessment of it. I'm on the same page for a change. So
one thing I'm on the fence about is that little extra scene at the end. The post-credit scene in the first episode. And I'm on the fence.
There's going to be a post-credit scene in every episode, so everybody stay tuned for every episode.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
What age demographic is Marvel targeting? And they can change that. It doesn't have to be the same for every show, But the funny part about this series, or at least this episode, up until like the end, I'm sitting there going like, oh man, this would actually be fun, if my like 8-year-old son watched it. And he's not 8 years old yet, but I'm saying if he was, like, I'd be like, 8 years old, I could have him watch this. I think he could probably have, he'll be 7 in February. I'm like, he could probably start watching this, and there's definitely like the previous movies and stuff. I know there's some serious stuff and, whatever, but that last little joke at the end, I'm like, yeah, I probably would have turned it off. Like, I probably would have turned it off. Like, I don't need my 7-year-old asking me what a virgin is. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's something about it. Meanwhile, I get the joke. It's kind of a funny joke. I thought the ending was funny, but it just makes me wonder about, the marketing for some of these shows and the demographic that, can watch it. I guess it's safe to assume, we have to be, it's all PG, right? PG-13 maybe.
I don't know. I think so. I think it's an attempt to be universal.
Yeah.
But there's going to have to be something for adult. People get killed on a regular basis. People die. So
yeah,
in some of these shows. So if murder is not a problem for you, I personally, if I was a parent, I'd have more problems with the violence than I would about jokes about whether someone's a virgin or not, But that's me.
That's another thing, though. That's another thing where cartoon violence and comic book violence is different than seeing it up on screen. As I watch these shows, that happens. I think about these things, and not just because I'm a parent, but just in general, I think about, like, in comic books, it just makes sense. Like, bad guys attack, you have these great, because it's colorful, it's art, it's it goes beyond just the storytelling aspect to it, because when you, as a comic book fan, you can enjoy, like, I love the post credit, or the credit sequence where they're actually showing like live drawings and they're bringing them to life, and it's like, I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, the Mandalorian thing.
Yeah, but in a totally, like, unique way that they did it, and it really kind of lent to being like, an 80s style or 70s style comic book, look, like, with the different vignettes they were showing. I thought that was amazing. And there's something about that to where I kind of like, it's one of those things where, again, I just tip the hat to comic books and what Alan Moore said many years ago, where he's like, if I wanted this to be a movie, I would have made it as a movie. If I wanted this to be a book, I would have made it as a book. And, I'm just giving a nod to, the glory that is an actual printed paper comic book, to where you can do things and they just make sense. But you try to replicate that in real life, and it just doesn't quite have the same impact. Like when they first get attacked by the ship at the beginning, right? That is, to me, like, just a typical, like, comic book splash page, like, turn the corner, boom,
So what, you saying it didn't work in the show?
I'm saying I looked at that and said, oh man, that's what I would get in a comic book. But the impact in a comic book, I think, would be greater if the artist drawing it was great. You know what I mean? Like there's an extra element to reading that and seeing that in a comic book, because of the artistic factor that goes into, like, oh man, like, wow, it hits you from a storytelling perspective, probably the same. But maybe the visuals aren't as impressive as they might be in a comic book. Like, could you imagine if, like, Jim Lee drew an awesome spaceship intercepting, She-Hulk and Hulk in a comic book, or Dale Keown, because he's a legendary Hulk artist. Like, his line work, there was something about the impact that, me as a comic book fan, kind of tends to, feel like that's better.
I guess
it's tough to replicate that, is my point. That it's tough to replicate that live action in a TV series, as opposed to, like, just seeing it on a printed page.
Yeah, I didn't have that problem with it, though. That's why I'm kind of, I could see it, but I wouldn't correlate that unless I was seeing a direct adaptation. Unless this episode was a direct adaptation of a comic book issue, then
Fair
I'd
enough.
be like, I think they did it better in the comic book.
Right.
But you're just imagining what it probably would look like.
These
as
are
opposed to what you
thoughts that I'm thinking as I'm watching this. You know what I mean? Like, there's just little momentary tangents that go off into my head when I see something like that and go, oh man, that would have been a splash page. And, again, like what would that splash page look like and what would the impact be? And it's just, again, it hits in a different way. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. But again, that's just the magic of the printed page for me. That and maybe I'm just sticking up for the source material because it seems that gets less and less relevant these days as we get more MCU TV series. I mean, I think I've said this on the show before. I think the like the MCU now is the real Marvel universe now. I mean, I hate it, but I hate that is the fact. But I feel like you could poll the masses and say, are you a She-Hulk fan? Are you a Hulk fan? They'd be like, yes. Have you read a Hulk comic or a She-Hulk comic? No. Like,
yeah,
I think
that's true.
But
I think they, the MCU is now bigger than the comic book universe ever was.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a good thing and a bad thing, right? It's
right.
It's an angel and a devil.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right. What did you guys think? What did you guys think of She-Hulk? Tune into the comments and give us all that. We will, even on vacation, we will respond to the comments because we all have phones and we can't get off them. And I check comments and I go back and forth. I'm going to try. I'm trying on vacation. I'm going to try to tune out of the phone. What's that?
I said, I'm not a comment checker. F you.
Yeah, that's true.
Everybody always has something negative to say anyway, so I don't check the comments.
All right, guys, this has been the Rogue Wave podcast. Like I said, we are off next week, but we'll have some cool YouTube videos out. Badass Babes will be out next week as well. So do check out all the awesomeness that is on Rogue Matter. Tales from Tundo, that got dropped today as well, too. So that's on every major podcasting app. Thank you, Aaron, for reminding me. I'm a terrible self-plugger. I'm a great plugger when it comes to plugging my stuff, but I got to make sure that we're plugging the entire company. But yeah, so go check it out. Go enjoy the week. Come back refreshed and renewed, Hassan. I want a tan on you when you come back.
Okay.
No tan?
No, sir.
This has been the Rogue Wave podcast. We will see you guys next week. Hi guys, Mike Dolce here from the Rogue Wave podcast. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps us out. Leave a comment, let us know what you'd like to see in future episodes, and tune in every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern for a brand new episode of the Rogue Wave podcast.